art of the possible. Today's topic is going to touch on some pretty important data and information to help planners be successful as they make critical decisions about their programs, not just for today, but also as you look out to 2021, thus when we meet again. Most people think that they're okay looking at January, February, and oh, I've got plenty of space, I've got plenty of time. And then when you ask some critical questions like, okay, well, social distancing, that ballroom that we booked for 500 people, is that going to really fit 500 people now? So those are the questions that we really want to sort of talk about today. And then, okay, so that maybe that ballroom, maybe that citywide, that destination is no longer going to fit based upon social distancing. So where do we put our program? Where do we look for data and details? So those are the questions we're going to answer today with our experts from our panel today. Today we have Kelsey Waite. She's the business development executive with Smith Travel Research, or STAR, and also an amazing individual. We have Kristi White, VP of Product with Knowland. Good afternoon, ladies.
Hi.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having us.
Of course. Super excited about today's topic. Anyone who knows me knows that I love both hotels and I love destinations. So travel, this is very passionate for me. But more importantly, today's topic is really, about bringing our industry together, right? And I want to thank you so much for helping us, because that's what this is about. This is how we're going to get through this. That's how we're going to thrive, right? Is coming together, helping each other to be successful. So with that, I want to go ahead and maybe start off with Kelsey. And you're with Smith Travel Research, is that correct?
Yeah, STR, yep. So been there about 5 years.
Perfect. And Kelsey, so keeping in mind, can you tell us a little bit about the destinations you've researched, maybe some background on them, that sort of give us the parameters of what we're working with today?
Yeah, sure. So STR, we have over 260 different markets just in the US that we're tracking. So we really want to make sure that we've got great data available, but then when looking at meeting planners and event planners and seeing how the industry just keeps changing over the last few weeks, even, like we know that a lot of business has to be rescheduled to the fall, but there are many markets that are full from August, September to the end of the year. So rescheduling doesn't really fit. And then, like you said earlier, Phil, there are markets that literally the convention center space no longer works with social distancing and the number of attendees. So what are some options for event planners in terms of where to move if they have to actually relocate and not just reschedule? And one of the things that I did was I narrowed down our 260 submarkets and looked at just the major metros that had enough hotel space for a citywide, so over 8,500 hotel rooms. And then I looked to make sure that between September and February, none of these markets had over 75% occupancy. So they really, historically at least, have had the availability to have more people come to market between September and February. So there were quite a few. So I found, well, quite a few. There were really about 15, but I want to focus on 7 that I think would be really a great opportunity. So again, there are a lot of great markets out there. It's just who has the space in these key months when we're really trying to relocate events and not just cancel and we'll have it next year. So the ones that I've wanted to focus on were going to be Baltimore, Charlotte, Columbus, and then the Greensboro, Winston-Salem kind of triangle, Hartford, Connecticut, Houston, and Tulsa. So of all of these markets, Houston is obviously the largest. They've got over 94,000 hotel rooms within just the metro. So a great opportunity there. But if you're looking for room rate deals, then really like Tulsa and Greensboro are going to be more appealing in terms of rate, because their rates are really 90 to 83. Sorry, guys, my microphone. Can you hear me now? Is this good? Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. So for Baltimore, Charlotte, Columbus, Hartford, they're really for Q4, Q1 in that $100 to $110 room night range for group, which is great. And then Houston is a little bit more expensive for their Q1. It's normally the average we've seen is about $121. So it's still nothing crazy there, but they really do have the opportunity and the availability to bring in more groups during September through February. September and October are obviously going to be the busiest months for any market. But what I did find interesting was that Tulsa actually had the most availability of these markets in September and October. So if you're really looking for a fall conference, I don't know about what their convention center space is right now, and I'm sure Kristi can talk a bit more about that too. But really, September and October historically has been the most open for Tulsa of those 7 markets.
Wow. So that's pretty critical. That's pretty impactful, to be honest. So, I personally am a hotel person, and having that data is pretty critical. Just a quick question, if I could, is this available to the public, or if I wanted to get more of this information, how would I do that? I know that's, we'll get to some other questions here in a second, but.
Yeah, you can, it's definitely available to the public, especially on these market level data. So what we would be able to do is we'd be able to look at like whatever market you are interested in and show some historical data, not just for total room occupancy or rate, but really what the difference is between group rates and transient rates, which I think is really important when tracking and negotiating and saying, well, I know that you're charging other people this rate, but you're trying to charge me $50 more. Yeah, definitely something that is available to anyone, and you can just reach out to me. My email address I know will be at the bottom of the podcast later on. So if anyone has any questions, yeah, please feel free to reach out to me.
So I know you talked a little bit about it, but the group rates, is there any more information you want to share on the group rates for those destinations or in general?
Yeah, so in general, we have seen that group rate is normally a little bit lower than what transient or just one-off people, business travelers, what they are being charged. However, what we've seen after a downturn is that those transient rates actually plummet like 6, 7, 8 months faster than group rates. Again, that's because these have been negotiated months and months ago. This is a little bit different because no one's traveling right now. But we do expect rates to fall across the board for everyone. We really are not expecting a lot of high rates. Luxury, of course, luxury properties are still going to be the highest, but they have the longest length of time that we've seen to fully recover. So the rates are going to be higher than other properties, but you are going to get really good deals in luxury properties for at least the next 2 years, is what from other past downturns is what we've really seen.
And do you sort of, I mean, this is sort of a very unique downturn, if you will, right? So previously we've kind of gone through, the dot-com bust, and we've gone through 9/11 and the Great Recession, and we've had a lot of downturns, right? And so I think this is a pretty catastrophic one that has really impacted our hospitality industry. So you feel like that's still kind of going to measure the same as far as the next 12 to 24 months or 18 months. That's still going to be sort of the same trend. It may come and go, but I think the reality is nobody really knows, right? So, so thanks for that. And then what types of markets normally recover quickest?
Yeah, so and like you said, we really are still expecting this to mimic some of the other downturns. It's not really going to be a 9/11 because it is a bit more prolonged and has a larger overall economic impact. But what we're seeing right now is there's not a second wave of fear. If travel does start to come back, we don't expect it to last quite as long as like the housing crisis. So we're really seeing something between like 3 and 5 years in terms of getting back to rates and occupancies that we saw at the end of 2019. But in terms of who comes back and recovers the fastest, it's going to be those more suburban markets, a lot of the rural areas. So major metros do tend to take a hit faster and then take longer to fully recover. So those tertiary markets, yes, they might get back to 2019 rates faster, but those rates are still probably going to be lower than even what those major metros are at a 2015 level. So just something to keep in mind as the rates are going to be lower, but I'm sure as Kristi will say, that might then change what hotels are charging planners for other things that they might normally get comped or at discounts. So we're really, those suburban cities, so places like Southland, Chicago, places outside Houston, or even Dallas, Fort Worth, like places like Lubbock, we really see those recover faster, but those rates are still going to be lower than what you would get in the downtown core.
Gotcha. Wow. That's some amazing information. And again, I hope for our planners that are watching that these are helpful tips as they make decisions moving forward. So Kelsey, again, thank you so much for being with us today. Amazing information, super helpful. And I will talk to you soon. And I'm going to switch over to my other best friend, Kristi. And Kristi, now correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm a little older, I kind of forget things. Knowland is the largest data source of events for hotels in the industry. Is that correct?
That's correct. We actually read 170 markets around the world to monitor meeting events that are going on so that we can understand what's going on specifically in markets. Additionally, we work with CVBs to track pace into markets so that we can understand, what that business going into a market looks like from a going forward perspective.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. Like to be able to read all those, and the information you're going to share today is kind of a snapshot, right? So it's not a full, robust sort of thing, but these are sort of snapshot conversations that we're going to have. Is that correct?
Yes. And then some recommendations, I think, for meeting planners, especially of what they need to be prepared for as we step into the fall or step into next year and recovery really begins to return.
Gotcha. And I love that word recovery because we're on our way. We're going to thrive, right?
That's the goal.
Let's
yes.
Jump into it.
So I will kind of start there to kind of build on what Kelsey was saying. What we've seen, and I'm going to show a little bit more of this on the presentation on Friday, is tertiary markets recover first, secondary markets after that, and then the primary markets, obviously. And most of that shift is related to cost. So meeting planners cutting costs. So rather than doing one big meeting, maybe they do 5 or 6 smaller meetings. And we'll see all of this in the numbers because what we see is the number of meetings go up dramatically in the recovery years, but the size of those meetings actually draw back. And then I've got some interesting numbers that's going to look at the whole 10-year period over the last years and how the meeting numbers and the meeting sizes have shifted across those years. So I'm looking forward to that.
That's why I love you, Kristi, because you just get so excited about these numbers.
I'm such a geek.
No, it's critical, right? So I guess our first question is, what should planners be prepared for as far as what do they deal as far as markets and, rates and those sorts of things?
From a rates perspective, unfortunately, we are sort of our own worst enemy where that's concerned. And we're going to panic a little bit and we're going to lower our rates. And then ultimately, that's going to impact our group rates. So as with all economic downturns, however long this slide down is, it will take twice as long to go up to recover to where we were prior to the slide. So in any way that we can, that hoteliers can kind of hold firm on the rates, it benefits the industry wholesale. Unfortunately, for most planners, or actually, I guess it's more fortunately for most planners, that's not what's going to happen. So you're going to get some pretty good group rates out there, probably in the next 5 or 6 months, as hotels somewhat panic and try to stimulate demand.
Sure. Yep. And then, how will pricing change going forward? I mean, is it really going to be hugely discounted? I mean, again, is Kelsey and I were talking. This is a little bit different, right? In that we don't know what's coming, but we kind of know that we're coming out of this in particular environment. So it's a little bit different. What does that look like from a meeting space sort of thing moving forward?
That's where I actually think meeting planners need to be more concerned. Is the days of waived room rental are probably likely going to be long gone, because social distancing is going to take into place. So that ballroom that used to accommodate 500 people may now only accommodate 250 people. And hotels have to meet their margins on that meeting space. So if you've got 100 rooms for that thing, and in the past that might have gotten you free room rental, that's probably not going to get you free room rental now, because they're only going to be able to fit 250, which means maybe it's only 50 rooms that you're giving them to get there. So those are things that you're going to need to look at as hotels really scale back and say, how many rooms can we physically fit? Whether that's from local government saying this is what the social distancing metric needs to look like, or even your client organization saying this is what we want our social distance metric to be. They're going to have to factor all of that into their cost. So I anticipate the room rates, the guest room rates, will stay roughly the same that we've seen, although we'll probably see them come down because those are driven by transient rates generally. What's going to change is fundamentally how they're pricing out that meeting space. So probably not on meetings that are already on the books that go forward in the fall, but if you try to rebook an event, if you try to go back and try to scale that meeting space up, that's probably going to change it. Or if you book anything new, anticipate that that's coming.
Gotcha. Interesting. All right. So from the dynamics of all of this, what is it going to look like from a food and beverage perspective then from a meeting space?
Oh, it's so the germ phobe in me is extraordinarily happy because it means buffets are probably going to go away for a very, very long time. But as a hotelier, I can also that means that we're going to get more plated options, which again means your costs are going to escalate from that perspective. The dreaded days of box lunches are going to come back. And I've worked on both the meeting planner side and the hotel side, and customers always complain because the choices were kind of yucky and they're expensive. And they're expensive because they're very labor intensive. The other thing, and this is what I would recommend to meeting planners, is working with your client organizations to understand what their level of comfort is. So are they always going to want prepackaged items? So that prepackaged muffin that we buy that costs a lot more, which is going to drive your cost up. Or are you comfortable with the hotel freshly baking muffins and then putting them in vellum wraps somehow so that it's still contained? People grab the envelope, not grabbing the food. Those are things that you're going to have to make sure you understand going in, and that you work with your hotel, because all of that's ultimately going to drive cost up.
Gotcha. Interesting. So I'll be honest, from my perspective as an individual, I'm devastated that the buffets are going away because I really enjoy eating.
You and my husband, yes.
On a personal level, Kristi, I don't know. That's personal. Anyway, so what about meeting space? I don't know if you had any sort of snapshots on any of the meeting space that maybe Kelsey had talked about, like how much square footage maybe at a destination or...
So we have that information, but as a typical rule, meeting space is optimized so poorly in most hotels. Even during optimal occupancy times, you really only see, we did an exam. Columbus was one of the markets that we looked at. So October of this past year, where Columbus ran 75% occupancy, the meeting space occupancy was only about 40% for the market. So there's really, there's room for them to get more meeting space if they need to. Where it's going to come down to is how are they going to optimize that from a revenue perspective? And it is something I encourage everyone to do. If you've got meetings on the books, you need to get back in touch with those hotels to make sure that you've got the right amount to accommodate for social distancing before they start eating up meeting space, because other groups are coming in and taking up bigger space because they thought to ask about it in advance.
Yeah. And so what I'm hearing then is it's not really all doom and gloom, that there are some real opportunities out there for groups. One, if you've got to grow due to social distancing, you may have that in certain destinations. And then what I'm also hearing you say is that make a decision quickly as to whether or not you're going to postpone
Yes.
or get in contact with your hotel partner. One of our first episode was actually with Hilton, and they talked a little bit about that, right? Partnering and how do you come together, but definitely reach out to your either your CVB or your destination about, hey, what do we have? How much can we really grow and accommodate social distancing? So although kind of challenging today, it sounds like there are some opportunities for both sides to make this a win and moving forward. Is that a fair statement?
That's absolutely a fair statement. Like I said, even in the busiest of times where your hotels are starting to peak out, you're only seeing occupancy in the meeting space at 40 to 45%. A really good hotel might get to 60% over the course of a month. It's interesting if you go and ask hoteliers, when's the last time you sold all of the rooms in your hotel? They could probably tell you that. Okay, maybe not today, but if you'd asked that question like 6 months ago, they could tell you, oh, last Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we were sold out. If you changed that question and said, when's the last time you sold all of your meeting rooms? You'd probably get crickets. Very few hoteliers do an exceptionally good job of managing and optimizing that space. So, you need to be more concerned that there are rooms in a destination than probably necessarily the meeting space, unless you're planning something behemoth. And let's be honest, something behemoth isn't happening in the next probably 8 to 10 months.
Right. Gotcha. So I guess there is some positive takeaways here, both from Kelsey talking about room rates for planners. And then from a meeting space perspective, it sounds like there's definitely some opportunities out there. And again, I know that there's plenty of space today, but as people get to make those changes, into either postponing or transforming it into hybrid meetings, there are some opportunities both on room rates as well as meeting space on destination. So
absolutely. The only thing I would caution is book as quickly as you can, because I think probably over the next 9 months, we're going to see the opposite of that. We're going to see room occupancies come down, but occupancy on meeting space go up. So that mix is going to be a little bit off over, I think, the next 9 to 12 months. So get out there and book it as early as you possibly can, so that you make sure you get the amount of space that your group needs for the number of people.
Gotcha. Perfect. Well, I can't thank both of you enough for being on today. I don't know if there were any questions from our audience, because I don't want to sign off and feel like someone didn't get their questions answered or not. I didn't see anything come up on the screen, but again, I'm a little mature.
There's just someone telling you hi. That's all I see.
Oh, well, hi.
Kimberly Hardy Trapp said hi, Phil.
I love her. She's the best. So again, ladies, thank you so much for today. Super helpful, I think, insightful. And I think that more importantly, it tells us again that there is a story, that there is a tomorrow, and that working together, we're going to thrive and be successful as an industry. And also, I would like to, if you're listening today, I look forward to everyone joining us next week, where the topic is going to be tech versus production. What do you really need? Do you need just technology? Do you need full production? So we're going to have Cvent and our partners with Manor Hill will both be live with us. And outside of that, I think across the bottom of the screen, you'll see both Kristi and Kelsey's email address. So if you have further questions or want information on how to get some more detailed specific destination information, reach out to them. Again, thanks so much, ladies, and I hope that you have a great day.
Thanks. Have a nice day.
Thank you.